At 6 o'clock on a Tuesday morning, 3 HOA board members and matching windbreakers showed up, apparently planning to tow my dock as if it had committed a felony. The tow guy stood on the shore, staring at the water, then at his truck, then back at the water again, clearly calculating whether physics would allow this stunt. After a long pause, he shrugged and asked where he was supposed to attach the chain. "To the American dream," replied deadpan, holding my phone up to capture every absurd moment. Behind them, our HOA president, Trina Pepper, waved a clipboard like a ceremonial banner, shouting loud enough to disturb wildlife in the next county. "By authority of the Cypress Hollow Covenants, Section Infinity," she declared, with the kind of confidence only ignorance of the law can produce. I couldn't help but notice the reflective safety vest she was wearing, as if that somehow made her legal threats more valid. A sheriff's boat hovered about 50 feet offshore. Inside, a deputy sipped coffee, clearly waiting for someone to do something spectacularly stupid. I had a feeling it wouldn't be me. "My name is Mason Bellamy, and I'm an IT guy whose greatest joy has always been staying out of trouble. 2 years ago, I purchased a condemned $5 lake shack on Gullbone Lake, a mosquito-ridden little ripple just outside Cypress Hollow. That price wasn't a typo. The seller needed to escape a tax nightmare, and all I wanted was some quiet water and an electrical outlet that wouldn't hiss like a venomous snake when I plugged in a coffee maker." The property had been abandoned for 3 years, gradually blending with the wild landscape. I counted 17 leaks in the roof alone. The dock tilted dangerously to port, and the entire shack smelled like wet dog and regret. But it was mine. It was waterfront, and it was peaceful. The HOA's reaction was laughter. Literally, laughter. At their next monthly meeting, Trina apparently circulated my purchase as a joke. Minutes later, I received a welcome packet that included a coupon for 1 free reality check, along with a passive-aggressive suggestion to review their 47-page architectural guideline manual, every single page devoted to acceptable mailbox fonts and shades of beige. I chuckled. Renovation happened slowly, mostly on weekends. I rewired the place, patched the roof, and reinforced the dock. Nothing fancy, just enough to make it livable. Then tech companies descended like a tsunami. Within 30 miles, 3 major firms opened offices. The state designated a scenic byway nearby, ushering in a flood of tourists. Property values didn't just rise, they skyrocketed. My dilapidated shack, eccentric and stubborn, was suddenly appraised at $5 million. Thanks to pristine shoreline, 200 feet off-water frontage, and legacy launch rights dating back before modern zoning laws. That's when things shifted. Laughter turned into paperwork. Mockery evolved into harassment. Trina started appearing at my property line with the surveyor's wheel, taking pictures, and making notes in her ever-present clipboard. Violations rained down like confetti at a parade. First, unapproved rustic aesthetic. My cedar siding, naturally weathered and picturesque, apparently violated some imaginary standard. She even included a paint chip of approved beige number 7. Then came the "Dock to Joyful" citation typed on official HOA letterhead, no less. My dock floated quietly, unobtrusive, except in Trina's world. Next, the kayaks were a crime against decor. Color clashes with community palette, the notice said. The kayak was blue, the color of the water it glided across. Trina wanted it top. Then came the surveillance motion-activated cameras aimed at my porch, ostensibly for traffic studies on a road where 3 cars passed a day. Night vision, pointed squarely at my front door. Then she trespassed, measuring my grass with a quilting ruler, crouching in the yard like a deranged horticultural inspector. Violation notices appeared at all hours. Wind chimes, firewood stacks, and even bird feeders drew her ire. When that failed, she escalated. A special assessment appeared for a $120,000 heritage pergola to beautify the shared shoreline. My portion? $22,000 for a structure I didn't want, on land I owned outright. Minor problem, my shoreline wasn't shared. My property predated the HOA by 40 years, officially grandfathered when the HOA formed in 1983. My deed showed I owned to the high water mark. I told Trina politely though with rising blood pressure that her covenants ended at my property line. She smiled, icy and unyielding, and said, "We'll see about that." She filed what she called an annexation by clarification with the county recorder. Not real legal paperwork, just words she invented that sounded important. Stapled to it was a forged quitclaim deed, claiming my dock, boathouse, and miscellaneous water features belonged to the HOA. The document looked professional at first glance, complete with seals and stamps. Problem: the notary was her cousin, who had moved to Arizona in 2019 and taken his official stamp. County officials confirmed the stamp was inactive, and the notary himself was surprised to hear of it. She also sent lenders notices of lien and intent to foreclose. Using HOA letterhead and statutes she'd clearly copied from a Florida homeowner blog. She claimed I owed $38,000 in back assessments, late fees, and legal costs for a property that had never been part of the HOA. My mortgage company called me in a panic. My insurance agent called, asking questions. Then, at 2:00 a.m., she cut the power to my shack with a bolt cutter, claiming it was for an emergency inspection, though later in writing she admitted it was punishment for not complying with her bogus assessments. That was the moment she crossed the line from annoying to outright criminal. The sheriff showed up to investigate the power line tampering and filed a vandalism report. The state attorney general's real estate fraud unit did the same after I sent them copies of her forged documents. Trina even emailed me a ransom-style settlement demand from her personal Gmail account, writing that I could make everything disappear for just $250,000. Federal authorities soon begin sniffing around for potential wire and mail fraud. Using the internet and the mail to commit fraud automatically escalates it to federal jurisdiction. The FBI doesn't find that kind of joke funny. Gullbone Lake, once quiet, quickly became swarming with law enforcement. Unmarked sedans lined the streets, and agents in polo shirts methodically photographed everything. Meanwhile, Trina continued, showing up, clipboard in hand, seemingly unaware of how deep the hole she was digging had become. I had done my homework long before any of this erupted. My title included a riparian easement recorded with the county in 1968. Buried under the lilac bushes was a survey monument marking my property line, a literal mic drop in granite. My lawyer filed a temporary restraining order, a quiet title action, and an anti-slap motion to dismiss the nuisance suits Trina had machine-gunned at me. The county clerk nullified her fake annexation by clarification with genuine laughter that might have triggered asthma attacks. Deputies returned the power tools Trina had confiscated, and the Attorney General froze the HOA's operating account pending a full investigation. Even the tow company sent an apology basket filled with artisanal bungee cords and a handwritten note. The emergency hearing. Trina arrived in a blazer colored like righteous fury, armed with 3 full binders, color-coded tabs, a laser pointer. She clicked nervously, and a PowerPoint titled The Greater Good. Slide 1 was a neighborhood map with my property highlighted in red like a malignant tumor. Slide 2 was my Zillow estimate, blown up like a wanted poster. $5 million circled repeatedly in red marker. She argued that my property value was inflating taxes for everyone else and that the HOA had a duty to acquire my land for the community benefit, mangling the concept of eminent domain at least 4 times. My attorney sat quietly, jotting notes and occasionally glancing at me with the faintest hint of a smile. When Trina finally exhausted 20 minutes of circular logic and appeals to community harmony, my lawyer calmly plugged in a jump drive labeled receipts. The evidence was undeniable, time-stamped. Ring footage of Trina trespassing on my property at least a dozen times. Sometimes at night, once with a flashlight, once with spray paint. She used to mismark my property line. Side-by-side comparisons of notary signatures clearly showed forgery. Bank records revealed the HOA account funding her personal legal fees. Screenshots from the HOA chat included messages like, "If we own the dock, we own the man," followed by laughing emojis. "Mason doesn't know we can just take it. Precedent doesn't matter if we act fast." And my lawyer cousin says possession is 9/10 and nobody checks county records anyway. The courtroom fell silent. Even the bailiff's chewing gum seemed to lose flavor. The judge studied the screen, removed his glasses, cleaned them slowly, replaced them, and stared at Trina with an expression that could freeze lava. He asked her attorney if he could explain any of this. Pale as a ghost, he admitted he was unaware of most of it and requested a moment to confer with his client. Trina whispered urgently to him. He shook his head. She whispered again, more desperately. He started packing his briefcase. The judge voided every single fraudulent lien she had filed, imposed substantial financial penalties on the HOA, and referred Trina to the district attorney for forgery, recording false instruments, and attempted grand theft. Then came the crowning moment. The judge appointed a receiver to run the HOA, mandated refunds of all bogus assessments to homeowners, and awarded me attorney fees, treble damages, and the legal right to host an annual dock party. I decided to call it Section Infinity. Trina's face cycled from red to white to a shade of gray, and never seen on a living person. Trina was sentenced to 400 hours of community service scraping zebra mussels off public piers, wearing a neon yellow vest labeled, "Ask Me About Deeds" in bold black letters. The judge required her to comb out the work on weekends for maximum public visibility. She was fined $15,000 immediately, with an additional $23,000 in restitution to defrauded homeowners. A permanent restraining order barred her from coming within 500 feet of my property. She was permanently removed from the HOA board and prohibited from serving on any HOA board in the state for 10 years. Criminal charges for forgery and filing false instruments were referred to the district attorney, carrying potential jail time of up to 3 years if convicted. As the judge read each consequence in his deliberate voice, Trina trembled, mouth agape, unable to form a single word. Her hands shook so violently that she dropped her clipboard, scattering papers across the floor. She tried to speak twice, but produced only strangled noises. Her lawyer silently packed up, handed her a criminal defense card, and left without a backward glance. She stood alone, staring at the judge in disbelief, as if she could not comprehend that authority did not shield her from the law, that her clipboard, her covenants, and her sense of control were meaningless in the face of actual justice.